Maybe that's a good thing.
Good evening, Lake Forest. Welcome to the April 2nd, 2018 reconvening of the Lake Forest City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Honorable Mayor Lansing.
Here?
Alderman Beidler.
Here.
Alderman Morris.
Here.
Alderman Newman.
Here.
Alderman Rummel.
Here.
Alderman Tack.
Here.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Here.
Alderman Moreno.
Here.
Alderman Bushman.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Will you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business is comments by city officers, starting with myself. And with that, I would like to introduce Jillian Chapman, Creative Director of the Deer Path Art League, to present the 11th Annual League Emerging Artists Awards.
Thank you, City Council and families. I'm so excited that everyone is here tonight. I just have to set up real quick. For over 64 years, it has been the mission of the Deer Path Art League to spark, nurture, and enhance creativity, as well as raise awareness and appreciation of the arts in the community. We are a small grassroots 501c3 nonprofit organization here in downtown Lake Forest. It is important to us that the arts receive the care and advocacy it needs to thrive on the North Shore. We host a number of community outreach programs such as Art Fair in the Square, in Market Square, over Labor Day weekend, the Young Artists section at the Art Fair, where children can display and sell their own artwork, adult and youth art classes, the Lake Forest High School Scholarship, and of course, the Emerging Artists exhibit. Due to financial constraints, we were forced to close our gallery back in 2015. We are deeply grateful that we could continue to host our annual Emerging Artists exhibit at the gallery, which is a creative space that represents independent artists and artist groups, with a culinary studio whose menu is inspired by the exhibit on display. The Emerging Artists exhibit would not be able to continue without their support and the generous support from the City of Lake Forest. The arts deserve a place in this community to enrich the youth and encourage them to explore the endless possibilities we can give them. The Emerging Artists exhibit opening reception will be held this Sunday, April 8th, from noon until 3 p.m. and will remain on display until April 28th. And now for the awards. Mr. Mayor, do you want to come up and hand
Yes.
them out and shake hands?
All right, yes, we will. All right.
Great. Okay, do you want me to hand them to you or all of them? Okay, thank you. I can do one by one. Okay, great. Yes, at the very end. Perfect. Okay, so the first school that we will be presenting is Lake Forest Country Day School. Winner for two-dimensional artwork is Evelyn Lee, 7th grade.
Congratulations. Great work. And Let's line up. We're gonna line everybody up. Yeah, just hold it right there. That's good. Everybody lined up. Okay.
Also from Lake Forest Country Day School for three-dimensional artwork, Nate Weiner from the 6th grade.
Congratulations.
The next school is Deer Path Middle School East. The winner for this school is Maddie Williams, 6th grade. For Deer Path Middle School West, Reagan Dean, 7th grade. The next school is Lake Forest High School. For 2D, Haley Zarek. Also for Lake Forest High School for 3D, Jenny Badger. Next presenting school is Lake Bluff Elementary. For 3D, Campbell Gore. Also from Lake Bluff Elementary for 2D, Jessica Taylor. For Sheridan Elementary, Jack Carter.
Velvet cake on the bottom.
Seems to be some missing.
Next school is Cherokee Elementary, Grace Lombardi, 2nd grade. Next school is Everett Elementary, Sienna Cerrone.
Congratulations. Stand next to me. Yours. Good, well done. I'm standing over there.
Also, from the Deer Path Middle School, they present an APT art fair. And the winners from this art fair for the Emerging Artists exhibit for 2D is Shalani Krishnaswamy. Also from APT art fair is Owen Schuler, 8th grade. Next is Woodlands Academy, Miracle Tapia. For Lake Bluff Middle School, we have for 3D, Lillian Alcorn. Also, for Lake Bluff Middle School, for 2D, Ella Grace Connolly. And last but not least, our last presenting school is Kinderhaven Preschool Academy. We have Ryan McCartney.
Everyone will stand up. Yeah. So everybody down to about here.
Oh, would you come over here?
Right about there.
Yeah.
And everybody move down.
Congratulations to our award winners.
I'm standing between two trees.
And then everyone kind of.
All right, Jack.
How about we have a row of wee ones? We'll see.
It's more coming.
You want to do a front row maybe? Or the
Pardon me?
small ones, make it smaller?
I think we're fine.
You fine? Okay.
I can go.
He's the director.
But he's behind the
Trying to make
tallest
things
person.
happen.
I think that should do it.
Wonderful. Well done. Congratulations to one and all. And if the photographer missed a good picture, there's about 500 available from the parents. Yeah. All right, well, thank you, Jillian. That concludes the presentation of the awards. So I think some people are getting close to their bedtime. Yeah. So I'll give you a moment to depart.
Thank you, Biddy.
Yeah. Melanie, I'm going to read this, and we're going to go to, I'm going to read this, and we're going to go to the ethics too, so it's just be ready.
To the what?
Ethics, just read it, and that's it.
Okay, so do you want me to go over the?
No, I wouldn't go over the details. Or maybe, let me just introduce it. If you think I left something out, why don't we do that?
You want to start it then?
Yeah.
I wanted to make a case for you.
Kathy looks good sitting over there.
It sure was.
Easy.
Thank you for moving along.
Still not 7:30 yet.
That's what we want to show.
Thank you. That was fun to do. The second item of mayor's comments that I have regard the following. The city council has received a letter of resignation from city attorney Victor Filippini of the Filippini Law Firm, which has been accepted. The city's legal committee has begun the replacement process for this position by issuing a request for proposal for professional legal services. The legal committee will conduct interviews over the next 60 days and bring forth a recommendation to city council for consideration no later than June. City council will interview the recommended parties. We thank Mr. Filippini and his associates for their dedicated and able service over the past 18 years and wish them well in future endeavors. The firm will provide legal services to the city until the successor is on board. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce the sense of the council to pick up and review after many, many years. I hate to think, it probably goes back well more than 10 or 15 years, to pick up the city's ethics ordinances, primarily as a result of actions taken by the state in the last year or two to verify and make sure that we're up to date in all respects with the ethics ordinance. As we all know in life, there tends to be a creep in these things in terms of changes and different points of views and best practices and best in class and that sort of thing. And Alderman Rummel has already supplied some thoughts and ideas in her role as an attorney where she's had some experience with ethics. I think, I guess the one formal thing we might do is vote to, as a council, to send to the legal committee the ethics ordinance for review and updating to meet state standards and also best practices of similar communities and governing organizations. So with that, I'll put a motion, put that motion to the council as a voice vote, I would imagine.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Alderman Rummel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The legal committee, which meets once a month, this may take a couple of months or so until we get feedback, so it won't be that quick, but it will get done early in the new fiscal year.
Does this need to be done before the budget is approved?
No, I don't think, no,
No?
it's a
Okay.
separate legal matter.
There was something about those other policies, I think, that we're looking at that were going to coincide with the budget.
Yeah,
Is that right?
well, there's some finance committee actions.
But no, I don't think that needs to,
Okay.
because you're working with the city manager on a whole bunch of those.
Right,
So
right,
when
okay,
they're ready, I think.
okay.
Okay. With that, we turn to item number 4, which is the opportunity for citizens to address city council on non-agenda items. I have a statement I want to read. The mayor and city council welcome public comment. We are glad you are here and hope you will attend often. An involved and informed citizenry is the best means of ensuring good government and the long-term quality, character, and strength of our community. The city council respects all points of view and listens to all points of view. To assure that all members of the Lake Forest community and their various views and opinions feel welcome to speak, please refrain from clapping, cheering, or criticizing those who speak. Any of these actions is a form of intimidation to those expressing a point of view and comprises an act of bullying. The council is committed to continuing the city's long tradition of conducting respectful and civil discussions within these chambers. If clapping, cheering, or other remarks are made, the public comment period for the evening will be ended immediately. Received a couple of requests here. One is Dan Sebald regarding the rail corridor proposal. Okay, oh, you wanted to do it then? Okay, that's fine, that's fine. David Mattoon, 1547 North Sheridan, regarding city council minutes.
David Mattoon, thank you, Mayor and City Council. I believe the City Council minutes do not accurately reflect citizen comments. Tonight's meeting agenda is 3 pages long. 117 pages are attached which explain it. The minutes of the last meeting are 5 pages long. Citizens are invited to speak on agenda items or non-agenda items. In either case, in my opinion, attending some of these meetings for several years, citizens' comments are usually not adequately summarized in the City Council minutes. I feel this is the case whether I make the address or someone else does. When you look at the 5-page minutes from last meeting, you learn that 3 named citizens, quote, expressed an opinion, unquote. 3 words in 5 pages of minutes. Why aren't the minutes simply, quote, the City Council discussed some things, made some decisions, and citizens expressed opinions, unquote. The solution is simple. Attach to the minutes the citizens' comments along with a summary of the questions asked of and the answers provided by that citizen. Place the burden of providing that address, and the Q&A summary on the citizen. So for the clerk, set a deadline when the citizen should provide his or her address and the summary of the Q&As. The deadline should be late enough to allow a reasonable number of viewing days after the YouTube City Council meeting is posted. That's especially for the Q&A part. Set a procedure for submitting this information. Advertise the procedure on the website and the citizen comment forms. In the minutes for the appropriate agenda items, merely indicate, see the comments of Oxcart Fumblebrain attached, and attach the information to the minutes. For the citizen, while the address need not be word for word exact with the YouTube video, the submitted address should be substantially what is presented at the City Council meetings and no more. It should not include, for example, gee, I wish I'd said that comments. The minutes should not be used for inclusion of lengthy research papers or external resources. For example, if 10 people have prepared write-ups on the same position, but during the City Council meeting, 8 of those people waive their right to speak, only the 2 who address the City Council should submit their address for inclusion in the minutes. If a citizen has prepared a 2-page write-up but only speaks to 1 paragraph, only that 1 paragraph would go included in the minutes. These restrictions, along with the time restrictions for addresses, would keep the number of pages attached to the minutes to a reasonable number. For example, if 10 people talk, the 5-page minutes would only have 20 pages of attachments, far less than the 117 pages which support the agenda. In conclusion, allowing citizens' addresses to be added as attachments to the minutes shows proper respect for their opinion, makes their opinions available to everyone in the city and keyword searchable, and other than initial one-time preparation for the procedure, does not greatly increase the workload on the city clerk. I hope the City Council will direct the clerk to take these actions. Thank you. Any questions?
Well, thank you for the thoughts. It's a very thorough set of thoughts. Rather than shoot from the hip, I'd like to respond in the near term. there are a lot of issues surrounding minutes, their legal standing,
Okay.
summarizing other people's work. We do have YouTube
Right.
for real time, and, you know, YouTube is even easier to access than the minutes of the city, so it's,
But it's not keyword searchable.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's all kinds of issues and to ponder, but
Right. Okay. That's fine.
thoughts from an interested citizen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There are other requests to speak, but that I have here written, but relate to specific agenda items. Is there anyone else that at this time would like to make comments? Seeing none, we'll turn to item number 5, items for omnibus vote consideration. We have only 10 tonight, which is approval of the March 19th, 2018 City Council minutes, approval of the check register for the period of March 10th to the 23rd, 2018, approval of an Arbor Day proclamation, approval of an ordinance abating the 2017 tax levy for the general obligation bond issue, Series 2017. This would be first reading, and if so desired by the council, final approval. Award of bid to replace the flooring in the Recreation Department Fitness Center. Number 6, award of contract for the City of Lake Forest to join the Municipal Partnership Initiative. Concrete cracks, no, I'm sorry, this is the asphalt crack sealing contract for 2018. Award of the, number 7, award of the 2018 Streets, Curb, and Sidewalk Concrete Repair and Replacement Project. Number 8, award of the Lake Forest portion of the Municipal Partnership Initiative 2018 Joint Sewer Lining Project Contract. Number 9, consideration of ordinances approving recommendations from the Building Review Board. These would be first reading, and if desired by council, approved to receive final approval. Number 10, approval of the intergovernmental agreements with the Department of the Army, the City of Highland Park, the Village of Deerfield, East Skokie Drainage District, and Lake County Stormwater Management Commission to evaluate the watersheds of the Middle Fork and Skokie River of the North Branch of the Chicago River, and the authorization for the city manager to execute required agreements. As before, if a councilman would like to pull any items for separate motion and voting, we can. Any particular short questions, comments?
Quick
Alderman
question.
Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quick question on the 10th item. It shows an account budget of $60,000 and an amount requested significantly less than that, and yet it shows as not budgeted. So I'm just trying to understand the numbers.
I cannot technically answer that. This is going to be a continuing study, so it will be, I think, approach that larger number. Bob Ells, the city engineer, help.
Good evening. I will try, Mr. Mayor. The account budget is the engineering consultant services budget. That's why it's $60,000. And this has been a moving target up until about a week and a half ago because the City of Highland Park, who was spearheading this, has been trying to get other communities to join in. And the amount of that we have to pay was directly related to how many communities joined. So we got that information last Friday, the final total that brought that to the 6624.
It should be 66,000?
Or no, $6,624.
So it's within budget.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Okay, it's just, it must be a typo.
Okay.
I think it's only
Okay,
a piece. It's
yeah.
only a piece of the budget.
It says not budgeted.
Oh, it's
Any other comments or thoughts on the omnibus agenda? Seeing none, I would, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Alderman Feidler?
Aye.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rommel?
Aye.
Alderman Tack.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
8 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. The next item of business is, number 6, is ordinances. Consideration of a recommendation from the Plan Commission in support of a special use permit authorizing a bank and drive-through facility for Chase Bank, and consideration of a recommendation from the Building Review Board in support of design aspects of the development proposed at 884 South Waukegan Road. This would be the final approval of the relevant ordinances. For introduction and explanation, Kathy Zerniak, the Director of Community Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This matter is back before you. It was last before you in January. At the request of Alderman Bushman, you did proceed with only first reading, and we held this item over in order to allow all of the aldermen to be present and consider this matter. At the last meeting, I did provide a fairly thorough review, reviewed the recommendations of the Building Review Board, Plan Commission, described the project, provided some background on the Waukegan Road Business District, talked about the special use standards, some features of this specific project, and then again reviewed the recommendations. I will not do all of that again tonight unless you'd like me to. I will do a briefer summary, but I wanted to step back a moment. There's been a lot of talk about the Waukegan Road Business District, and that made me think a lot about the Waukegan Road Business District and look at other communities and talk to staff from other communities. And if you really take a moment and step back and look at the district, we really have quite a variety of uses in that district. We have various retail, we have food services, educational, we have general services, professional offices, studios, financial services, banks, healthcare institutions, and the train station. And to dig down even a little deeper, it really is surprising when you step back. This is a business district that certainly is not perfect and certainly is not everything we'd like it to be. But we have a number of retail establishments. Many business districts would give a lot to have a full-service grocery store within the district. We are forever getting requests to bring a hardware store to the central business district. There is one on Waukegan Road. Florist, there's various restaurants, including a casual restaurant that will be coming soon to the area. There's various classes and tutorings, from dance to Pilates to tutoring for academics. There's various banks and financial institutions, various animal care institutions, religious institutions, including schools and churches. There are various services, cleaners, and mailing, a shipping business, various health and beauty services, various professional offices located in that business district, many medical services, that's probably the most dominant use, and then public services. We have our fire station and our train station. So we put this list together in part as we move forward to the comprehensive plan, but also to remind us. I think all of us tend to look at our weaknesses, and sometimes we forget the strengths that we have in Lake Forest. So I thought that this was enlightening to me when I actually walked around and looked at everything that's out there. It really is a mix as envisioned by the comprehensive plan. Again, not a perfect mix, but there's a lot more out there than you see at first blush. So now to move back to the petition at hand, you do have a proposal before you for a special use permit to allow a bank and drive-through facility at the location that formerly was McDonald's. It's on the west side of Waukegan Road, and it backs up to the railroad tracks. What's proposed is a new bank building. The existing McDonald's building will be demolished. The building itself began much different than the design that is presented today. Both the Plan Commission and Building Review Board encouraged the petitioner to go back and really look at a design, look at exterior materials that really were in keeping with Forest Square, so that that business district could begin to look cohesive instead of incrementally planned. The plan includes pedestrian connections throughout the site, but also really improves the pedestrian connection to Forest Square to the north, and to Waukegan Road to the southeast, to allow people to get over, although it's difficult crossing Waukegan Road, to provide that ability, and also providing access, recognizing that the train station is in this location. This plan also provides some on-site courtyard, landscape courtyard areas will be available not only to Chase Bank employees, but also to others who may visit Starbucks or Jimmy John's. So the landscaping on the site is enhanced, pedestrian connections are enhanced, and importantly, and consistent with the criteria for a special use permit, the building is specifically designed to allow adaptive reuse, to allow multi-tenant, if that should be appropriate in the future, to allow entrances to be punched in on various sides, again, if that is ever needed or appropriate in the future. Quickly to summarize, you have various standards in the code by which the Plan Commission and the City Council must judge and evaluate special use permits. The Plan Commission recommendation found that the bank and proposed drive-through would not be detrimental, would not be injurious to the use of other properties in the area, would not diminish property values, would not impede other development or redevelopment, would not negatively impact the character of the area, that adequate facilities and ingress and egress were available to the site. The plan, as I mentioned, offers improved pedestrian pathways and a courtyard amenity, and the building lends itself to adaptive reuse. So in conclusion, you do have before you recommendations from both the Building Review Board and Plan Commission. The Plan Commission saw this petition on a number of occasions, directed a number of changes. Chase Bank responded very completely and thoroughly to those. You have unanimous recommendations, 6-0 votes from both the Plan Commission and Building Review Board. And if you choose to do so, it will be appropriate to grant final approval of the ordinances this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Kathy? Comments from councilmen?
I appreciate all the work that's gone into this and the fact that the Building Review Board and the Plan Commission have looked at it repeatedly and unanimously approved it. And then the legal committee looked at it from a special use permit and agreed on it. So I don't think it's our job to cherry pick the lessor in this, or the person leasing the property. So I'm in favor of this.
I'm planning to support this, and again, I think it's been thoroughly reviewed by our boards and commissions. The one thing I would say, and I have no idea if there's anybody from Chase here tonight, and I mentioned this last time too, we take our relationship with our businesses in this community very seriously, and we expect a reciprocal relationship. We want, we're a small enough community that we expect the businesses to be well integrated into whatever neighborhoods they're located in. And so when someone from a national group like Chase comes in, we want to be sure they understand that we hope they get engaged in our community activities of various sorts. And I would give that same message to Chase that I would give to any other organization with a national presence. This part of Lake Forest is extremely important to us for a range of reasons, which I think we're going to be able to articulate even better after the next work on the comprehensive plan. But Chase will be entering a community that is well established, that is loyal, that expects high quality services from everyone who works there, and there's a great deal of residential community around it. So it's a very well integrated community in a lot of ways, and we hope that the bank is a good partner to the members of the community. I myself am pleased because I often charge up the steps of Chase to pay my credit card bill the day it's due, and now I'll have an additional option to do that on as I do my sunset shopping. So I think it's a good plan, and I look forward to voting for it favorably.
Any others?
I looked at this very carefully. I think, I don't think there's an issue with having a bank, an additional bank in that area. There was another bank in the Western Business District in the past that has gone away. So when you look at the overall number of banks in that district, it's actually -1. The concern is that there are 3 banks in a row, and so it sort of makes a wall of banks in the midst of that central business district, which I think is unfortunate in terms of city planning. I did look at the number of deposits that Chase has coming out of Lake Forest in that area, and it's very impressive. This is a facility that is used by our residents. And they have met all of the criteria. Again, I look at this with my lawyer hat on. They have met all the criteria of the special use permit and that particular business district. In these circumstances, this body does not function as a legislative body, but as an administrative body. And I think that's important to remember. So we don't change our rules on the spot. There needs to be some certainty with residents that if they comply with our statutes, their requests will be granted. And I think that's what we're looking at here. And so for those reasons, I would approve this particular petition.
To add to that point, this is why we asked the legal committee to look at it. We wanted to make sure that they did meet all criteria and that this was an acceptable use within the special use permit. It meets all those criteria. And I would also add that what I haven't heard a lot of is that this is not a normal retail bank branch. This is in fact a wealth management branch. And given all the concern over traffic and density in that particular part of town, a wealth management branch most likely will have less traffic than a full retail branch most likely would have. So I think we'll get a, perhaps not noticeable, but there will be some reduction in traffic congestion over, especially on this particular piece of property. So I support the petition.
Nothing to add. I voted against it the last time. First, because I thought we were being threatened and intimidated to vote for that. I've since been talked off the ledge on that one. Secondly, I really kind of didn't think that McDonald's was given a fair shot on this thing. And I felt it really was a shame that we were losing McDonald's, even though we were very much against it, I guess, 20 or 25 years ago. But, you know, and I really kind of thought that for a while we were selling out our development to the highest bidder, quite frankly. I've since been given some of the facts and found out, in fact, that McDonald's was an underperforming store and something, you know, that was not viable long-term for that. So while from a desirability standpoint, a bank is not my first choice. In fact, I don't get the right to pick and choose, or as Prue often says, cherry pick what I want. And while this is not as desirable to me as I would like, it certainly is acceptable to me as an alderman. So I'm going to vote for it.
I realize that we can't cherry pick, and I have to still say that I'm disappointed in us, because 3 banks in a row, when we've got an opportunity to do something that is more socially minded than a place that you can drive through and pay your credit card bill, is really quite disappointing to me. And I realize that legislatively there's no reason not to approve this. It checks all the boxes, but it doesn't check the most important box in my mind, and that box is community. It doesn't do anything for the community. So shame on us. I'm voting yes because voting no doesn't serve the purpose. It doesn't change anything. It checks the boxes. But I am very disappointed in us, and I hope that from a community development perspective, we can get off the dime and do something that's appropriate for us Because this isn't it.
I, obviously, in the Fourth Ward, I think I'm very close to the location of this proposal, both from a maybe physical standpoint, but also from a feeling standpoint. At the last meeting, which I was not able to attend, my comments were shared with the council, and I focused on two. One was I referred to as the principle, the other the precedent. In terms of the principle, I focused on the history of the site, the fact that McDonald's operated there for 20 years. I think it's fair to say that Mr. McEssie, the franchisee, operated his McDonald's in a wonderful way to serve the community and serve it in an unusually broad, cosmopolitan, neighborly way. I think he contributed, this McDonald's contributed significantly to the concept of the neighborhood business district, which the B1 district is. The question is raised, is McDonald's no longer viable? I submit that based upon the testimony that we had in this proceeding, and it was sworn testimony, that McDonald's did want a lease renewal. And if Chase did not come along, I do believe today we would have a renovated and operating McDonald's at that site now. But Chase did come along. You're entitled to. And I respect the company. You've done a lot of good, and you've made a lot of effort in seeking approval for your request. But certainly your bid, you outbid McDonald's. You bid it high enough to override the right of first refusal that McDonald's had. But it still leaves me with a concern as to whether this is good land use planning to weigh what we did have there versus what we're going to be getting with this proposal in terms of serving the neighborhood business district. Let me also comment on the idea that we should not be picking and choosing the type of tenant. That's true if we are dealing with a proposed tenant that is considered and falls within the classification of a permitted use under our zoning code, or even if it's considered a similar and compatible use with those listed as permitted uses, it's acceptable to not have this hearing, be approved, and we shouldn't be picking and choosing. But a branch bank is neither a permitted use or is a compatible use under our zoning code. It's a special use, which brings us to the precedent issue. The city, it seems to me, has been very sensitive to our shopping districts losing the retail nature to the financial and banking industry and maybe even the real estate brokerage industry. And it's curious that limitations have been imposed on our East Shopping District, which are referred to as non-retail percent rule. And where a non-retail usage, which certainly includes financial institutions, cannot occupy more than 10% of net rentable ground floor space, nor have more than 10% street frontage in both the B3 and the B4 business districts on the east side. I don't know the history as to why these same limitations, or even a 20% floor or a 30% of street frontage, should be a limit for the west side. But none was adopted in our zoning code, I recognize that. But in any event, the City Council in 2003 examined this problem, and in its ordinance and its findings said, quote, "The appropriate balance of retail and non-retail uses together create a synergistic environment that promotes healthy business districts, maintains property values, and retains and attracts a variety of businesses. Furthermore, a preponderance of any single business or use in the business district's limits opportunities for additive use and threatens to impact both the vitality of the districts and the fundamental character of the commercial area in the community." And if you look at the street frontage here, With this new addition, it's clear that the financial institutions will dominate our Settler Square area. I recognize that despite my comments on the principle and the precedent, city staff, plan commission, which I highly respect, believe Chase has met all the required special considerations. I'm not sure I agree with the concept about the legal committee, but in any event, there are two standards which, are questionable, namely whether Chase has satisfied the burden of showing that its special use will not negatively affect the overall character of the area, nor will it detract from the primary retail nature of the district. But I recognize that, you presented strong arguments. Reasonable people can differ. So I think it is important for us to look beyond this SUP request and ask the question whether the city is concerned about having a preponderance of any one type of business in our B1 district. What if 6 months from now, Wells Fargo or Bank of America approaches a retail operation and says, we'll outbid you and we want to move in and take over that retail operation? Maybe it is good. I don't know, but I think it is important that we revisit our planning for this business district, revisit the language in our zoning code as soon as possible so that standards and expectations are better defined in the hope that good comprehensive planning will provide a business district that's both viable and best serves the community for the future. With that goal in mind, I am happy to see that our next agenda item is a need to update our comprehensive plan, and happy to see that as phase one, this is on that list. So I'll happy to discuss that topic in more detail on our next agenda item.
Thank you. With that, I've received 2 or 3, I think. 2 requests for public comment, one from Jerry Jacks, 1220 Conway Road.
So I've lived in Westlake Forest for 67 years. I went to kindergarten at the fire station. And I'm in support of the McDonald's leaving there. McDonald's is not a great neighbor. It's not a community place at all. It's a place that just accumulates trash. And most of the people that come there are not from Lake Forest. The distance, if you go down to Waukegan Road to buy Old Mill Road, that's about the distance it takes to eat a Big Mac and order French fries and a Coke, and that's where the trash is. Right now, there's trash there. So, I don't necessarily know if that's the best thing as a bank, but that's a very, very difficult piece of real estate to develop. And I don't think my office is, I own the private bank building. My office is on the corner that looks on that building. That building has been maintained in years. So I disagree with you, Mr. Bushman, about that it's a great neighbor. It's not. It has never been a good neighbor. And it also smells over there, which Mackesy would go and you call the city, he'd go over there and fix the scrubbers, but it's not a great neighbor. I think having another bank, if somebody wants to step up the plate, they must have a pretty good business plan to do it, because it'd be very difficult to put anything else in that space. Just the same as difficult to put in another space where the car wash is going to go. Very difficult piece of property to develop. And I'm in support of it. And I live at 1220 Conway. I look at that building all day long, every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Dan Sebald, 560 Ivy Court.
Thank you. Dan Sebald, 560 Ivy Court. I'd like to express opposition to the bank and drive-through on the basis that it's too auto-centric And I thought the last two alders that spoke covered a lot of the items that I'd like to cover, so I'll go through very well, actually. And I'll just go through several of them quickly. Primarily, there's too many parking spaces, and this is not a good use of that site. That lot is bigger than the rest of the lots associated with the banks, and it's simply not a good use of the site. Many people now do banking online and get cash back at retail outlets. So again, it's very auto-centric, and it's just an ATM for a drive-through. Originally, there was nothing about it being a full teller type of drive-through. To get back to the point here, I felt that McDonald's is not a restaurant that I'll be eating at, but I do appreciate the comments that have been made, and even at the Plan Commission, there was one commissioner who spoke about their children being at the restaurant and so on and so on. But I would say that the franchisee is the type of business person that you want in this community. He has many franchises. This was the first one that he had closed. And I felt that the way this came about, the city was put in a bind and basically had to choose this route. The franchisee gave great detail about how negotiations went. And again, if you okay this, you're probably going to end up with more of this type of situation in the long run. It's not community-oriented, especially when you have 3 banks already. I want to address one comment that I think came from the city council that I had read in the newspaper, which was something about online sales is making it difficult for Settler Square to be a success. And I say that's kind of the easy way out if you're going to just claim that and then go along with anything. The issue is that there's a 4-lane highway that runs right through there. High traffic, high speed, that doesn't make for a destination, that makes for a temporary stop. All these businesses are like a temporary stop. And I'll just briefly, you should look to the county government and the way they're funding roads, ask what have they done for communities like Settler Square. And Ms. Cerniak mentioned crossing Waukegan Road, which is an example of what I'm getting at. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments from the audience on this agenda item? Sir.
Mayor Lansing and members of City Council, I'm Steve Douglas, 460 Washington Road. Tonight I'm here representing the owners of Forest Square, which abuts the property just to the north. We do understand why many people miss McDonald's, and the same can be said of Lovell's. And we also miss the 3 restaurants that have gone out of business at Forest Square in the last 10 years. Perhaps Westlake Forest has had a restaurant supply and demand imbalance. We also miss lots of other retailers that have recently closed their doors at Forest Square. Retail, as we once knew it, has changed dramatically in a very short time, and Market Square, Sunset Corners, and Forest Square have all lost tenants to online competition. Retail landlords now seek internet-resistant tenants, but we've also lost internet-resistant tenants like McDonald's, Lovell's, and our 3 restaurants due to these market forces such as insufficient demand or too much competition. So we believe that in the long run, these evolutionary changes are positive for the economic health of the area. Just as North Shore Health is now a destination for many potential retail customers, Chase Bank as a major national bank will be a powerful customer draw and therefore a positive force in boosting the economic health of Settler Square. With its handsome building design, sensitive to the surrounding architecture, with new landscaping and pedestrian circulation improvements, and by the way, a very neighborly gesture, the offer for Forest Square to benefit from some of the excess parking at times that the bank doesn't need it. Chase Bank will improve Settlers Square aesthetically, functionally, and economically, directly benefiting neighboring businesses, including, by the way, the new restaurant that Kathy Cerniak mentioned, which will serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and will be open soon at Forest Square. So given the economic reality of today's retail landscape, we believe that Chase Bank is the highest and best use for this site, making it good for Lake Forest business in general. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other comments on this agenda item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom Swarthout, 987 Maplewood Road, Lake Forest. I'm gratified to hear some of the comments made by the alderman. I was going to speak in behalf of the Fiore and Mariani family. You can't hear me? You can now.
Getting older, Tom.
You look older. I was going to make the point, as it relates to age, my grandfather, John Contagallo, and Frank Mariani's grandfather, Charles Fiore, would hunt in that area of Lake Forest in the Fiore's nursery some 100 years ago. The town has changed. Melanie made the point. It's changing. I mean, look across the street, we had a terrific men's clothes store, then it became a Blockbusters, then it became another men's clothes store, and now we're selling dog food. I mean, the world has changed. Steve made excellent points. We have more yoga and fitness centers in Lake Forest now than we have gas stations. When Melanie and I grew up here, there were 12 gas stations, 2 banks, and now it's flipped. The world will adjust, will consolidate. We've already seen it with Fifth Third. We've got a wedding dress store down the corner. So it's a challenge. I know that we're going to face that challenge, but I would wholeheartedly support the Mariani proposal tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment, public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council. There are 2 separate ordinances to consider here. The first would be, is there a motion to grant final approval of an ordinance approving a special use permit authorizing Chase Bank and an associated ATM drive-through at 884 South Waukegan Road, and also approving the overall redevelopment plan for the property as recommended by the Plan Commission.
Second.
This is a roll call vote.
Alderman Beidler?
Aye.
Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Tack?
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg?
Aye.
Alderman Moreno?
Aye.
Alderman Bushman?
Nay.
7 yea, 1 nay, motion carries.
The second, is there a motion to grant final approval of an ordinance approving the Chase Bank petition in accordance with the Building Review Board's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
It's a roll call vote.
Alderman Beidler?
Aye.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Tack?
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg?
Aye.
Alderman Moreno?
Aye.
Alderman Bushman?
Aye.
8 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, number 7, is new business. Consideration of a resolution restating and reaffirming the city's concerns regarding the Chicago-Milwaukee intercity passenger rail corridor, draft environmental assessment, and reaffirmation of the city's request for an environmental impact statement. The draft is in the packet to the council. the many whereases and the lengthy recitations in there.
I'm sorry.
Just hold on one sec, okay? Speak for themselves, and intends to reaffirm the call by Lake Forest and affected communities, as well as our congressional leaders, to have the Federal Railway Administration require a full EIS as part of the whole environmental assessment. Late in the day today, before I got here anyway, and I think all the aldermen got here, Alderman Bushman had some edits to make, which on the surface look rather straightforward and wordsmithing and so forth. Is there any particular comment about Alderman Bushman's selected comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve this resolution as amended by Alderman Bushman's?
I make that motion.
Second.
Is this a roll call? This is a roll call vote.
Alderman Beidler?
Aye.
Alderman Morris?
Aye.
Alderman Newman?
Aye.
Alderman Rummel?
Aye.
Alderman Tack?
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg?
Aye.
Alderman Moreno?
Aye.
Alderman Bushman?
Aye.
8 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
The mayor screwed up. Because there's a request from Dan Sebald to make a public statement on the rail corridor proposal. I'm sorry. Shuffling papers up here. If you forgive me, please come back. Okay. Next item under new business is consideration of a resolution by council directing and initiating an update to the city's comprehensive plan, to be presented by Catherine Zerniak, Director of Community Development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. At your recent Finance Committee meeting, I actually made this presentation. I thought for the benefit of those in the audience, I would quickly go through it. The city last comprehensively adopted the comprehensive plan in 1998. Since that time, there have been a series of incremental amendments, changes, additions to the plan, but we have not stepped back and taken a look at the plan in its entirety. So this community has a long tradition of planning. Many other communities, in fact, some states even require comprehensive plans, but normally a 20-year update is pretty typical. It allows us to take stock of existing conditions, look at current trends, but most importantly, to look forward. The comprehensive plan shouldn't be short-term solutions, but really look to long-term stability and really look to a vision for the community 20, 40, 50 years from now. The comprehensive plan also focuses on overall community interest as in comparison to individual interests, particular neighborhoods, really looks at the community and tries to balance interests throughout. You do have a resolution before you that would initiate a comprehensive plan update. We would propose to do this update in phases so that we're not waiting a full 18, 24 months and bringing you a complete plan to update, but bite off chunks, move those through the community involvement, plan commission review, and adoption process in a series, and then come back at the end, make sure all of those different sections are aligned, and make any final changes that are needed. We do propose in phase one to look at the housing component of the plan, and as Alderman Bushman stated, the Waukegan Road Business District specifically. Because of all the discussion about that area, it seems appropriate to really step back, take stock, look at the realities of business today, and determine what that area should be in the future and how we need to amend the comprehensive plan to facilitate that desired vision. Phase 2 would look at the central business district, the Route 60 corridor, and also our small business district on Route 41 near Old Elm. That is often a forgotten business district, but it is, or could be significant as we look at that frontage on Route 41. Phase 2 would also look at development and redevelopment activities. We certainly can look around the community and probably all identify buildings or even blocks that are ripe for redevelopment. And look at overall land use patterns. Look at how land uses, how we transition from one land use to another, how land uses relate, and identify if there are certain areas of the community that really deserve more in-depth special studies or maybe a more specific plan. Phase 3 would then look back at those land use decisions and look at our transportation and our infrastructure to see if, in fact, as we look at the uses, if our infrastructure is aligned with the anticipated uses. We would look at sustainability and how our land uses or perhaps some code amendments could better address the environment and sustainability. Look at community character, preservation, and quality of life. So as we move through the phases, we're really stepping up to a higher level and making sure all the various pieces align. Phase 4 would be alignment of chapters, and then look at overall implementation. So what happens to the plan after it's updated and adopted? Ideally, it doesn't just sit on the shelf, but we would look at, I'll skip ahead, we would look at amendments to the zoning code. We would look at perhaps amendments to other sections of the code. We would look at policy changes if appropriate. We would align our capital improvements program with the land uses and vision for the future. Perhaps it means the city acquires land or sells land, or there may be other types of actions that at the moment we can't even envision. How will the plan be accomplished? Well, it's initiated tonight by this resolution. This resolution is not meant to be a detailed work plan. That will come later. But this gives us the authority to proceed with that work. We would engage consultants to help with analysis and data collection and graphics and drafting. We would develop a detailed work plan. We're recommending that advisory groups or subject matter expert groups be identified, be likely appointed by the mayor is how that's occurred in the past. We would look at various opportunities for community engagement, workshops, small focus groups, business owners, residents, property owners, and again, experts in the field, those who know about marketing and business trends or housing. We would then draft updated chapters. We would then begin the formal public hearing process. So again, there's much that happens before we actually get to the Plan Commission and begin that formal public hearing process. The Commission would have discussion, deliberation, and ultimately make recommendations to the City Council, and you would then deliberate and, again, adopt the plan updates through various phases. Who would be involved? I think it's really whoever wants to be involved. Interested parties, there will be an opportunity to be engaged at different levels. We will certainly reach out. We will publicize the update. And we would likely seek volunteers that would then be directed to the mayor for appointment to particular subject matter groups. But again, we would work to do workshops in neighborhoods, at the fire station, at the library, but in areas that would really encourage people to come, some more formal and some more informal. So if you choose to do so, it will be appropriate to approve the resolution that's in your packet, and we will get to work.
2 years of work. You said that so straightforwardly. Questions, comments?
Thank you. Kathy, you mentioned a couple of business districts or business areas. but there are many more. Do you envision, for example, the Route 60 area? I realize there's not a lot there to transact with at the moment, perhaps, but would you envision that this process would expand to include other areas?
We would focus on all of the business districts, Waukegan Road, Central Business District, Route 60, Route 41. So yes, this would look at the city as a whole, all sorts of neighborhoods. It really does encompass the whole city.
Thank you.
I have a little more of a tactical question. Who the heck's the restaurant that's moving into Settler Square?
That's not public.
We'll tell
yet.
you when we tell you.
You have to wait.
Couple,
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Breakfast, lunch, and
you get
dinner?
your answer?
Yeah, I get the answer I always get.
Yeah, that's right. Couple questions, Kathy. Again, I appreciate in Phase 1 having the Waukegan Road Business District as being something to be looked at. Just within the last week or so, I've had 2 residents reach out to me with thoughts, opinions on things that could be done there. So I do feel it's very critical that we make sure we have the input from the citizens, and particularly those that have some good thoughts they can share with the city, and hopefully, make sure we have a viable district that, as I say, serves the community. In terms of your timeline, though, if we go forward, and again, Phase 1, and let me focus in on the B1 district, if we come up with some thoughts, for example, I'm raising the question, does our zoning code, or should our zoning code for that district talk in terms of, like we have the non-retail percent rule for the east, should we have that for that district? Without making a judgment, yes or no, I'm assuming that's a type of question that would be appropriate to be asked in this comprehensive plan. If we answer that question, and say there is a need to update the zoning code or something else, I'm hoping that, that step could be taken at that point in time and not delayed until we go through all 4 phases for the comprehensive. So, if there's a piecemeal thing that needs to be done or can be done, would you be amenable to doing that?
That's exactly why we broke it into phases. I think in the past, comprehensive plans have been updated as a whole, and I think the experience sometimes is 18 months later, you forget why you made a decision 18 months before. So breaking this up into phases absolutely will allow critical issues to be addressed after each phase. There may be, there undoubtedly will be crossover between the different phases. So I think we'd want to be careful to not amend a code provision that we might discuss later, but yes, if there's clear decisions, after Phase 1 is adopted, we can immediately begin implementation while we're still tracking on moving Phase 2 ahead.
And the other question I had is next month we're scheduling ward meetings with the council and the wards, and is this going to be a topic that we would have at least, for the 4th ward to have, a discussion, particularly it'll be in the month of May, so you've already started down the path to be able to reach out to the citizens to explain what the thought process is and to see if, we do have volunteers and look for input and what sort of input we can get and the best way to work through the process.
Yes, this will absolutely be on the ward meeting agendas.
Kathy, in terms of the process for people who are interested either to share their expertise in some area or just with a resident's point of view, are we prepared to take names on that yet? I mean, how would people, should they
We are.
contact
We
you?
will more formally
Okay.
make that request and get that on their website. But certainly, anyone who's interested immediately can let me know, and we will begin
Running a list.
putting together our interested parties list and specify if people are interested in certain topics.
And we could do that at the ward meetings too then, probably. Good, okay, thanks.
I just would encourage us also to look at what other communities have done to encourage retail in their areas. I read with interest an article today on, excuse me, it was either Patch or the Daily North Shore, on Highland Park. They were discussing this, and I wrote it down. Pedestrian-oriented shopping overlay, which is a different zoning district that I was not familiar with. They were discussing a bank that had gone out on one corner and a real estate office wanted to come in. And interestingly, they accepted the bank as part of their retail district, but didn't want an office on the first floor, which they considered this real estate office that wanted to come in on the corner of, I think it was Central and the second, it used to be a bank building. So I would like to do somewhere in there, study other districts and what type of zoning ordinances they have, and perhaps look at adopting some of those or changing them somewhat to meet our needs as well. The other thing I would like to look at is if we accept that there's a challenge here because retail has not been doing very well, then I would like us to consider potential incentives to incentivize businesses to come into that district. And, I don't even know if it's practical, but I know that we've engaged a consultant to come and talk to us about tax incentives with regard to hotels out in the Conway Farm area. And I'm just wondering if we could explore that possibility there.
All of those ideas are certainly open for discussion. Actually, the American Planning Association is a wonderful resource for all sorts of ordinances, overlay districts, and they talk about where they've been successful and where they haven't been successful. I think the beauty of the comprehensive plan is we don't want to jump into short-term solutions until we really know what's right, but certainly all of those ideas will be on the table for discussion, and many more.
I'm even wondering if we should consider adding it to that consultant contract that we approved already for the hotels. Maybe for a small additional fee, we could get them to discuss the feasibility of tax incentives applied to a business district.
A slippery slope, Alderman Rowe. Having spent 40 years in the business, and the issue is in the balance on the hotel itself. I would just, if I may, having been around the city's planning and zoning since the mid-'80s, it's like breathing for the professional staff. Kathy's predecessor, and certainly Kathy, is an exemplar of constantly being a student of what other communities do through professional associations and everything. So there's very little, I think, that would or has escaped Kathy's view. And I think that's all the more underlined in terms of sort of external ideas and that sort of thing by her entire career here at Lake Forest has been to further inculcate a pedestrian-friendly business district where they exist around town. It's hard with a 4-lane highway going down the middle of the west side, but certainly on the east side. That whole Northwestern Avenue project was the biggest part of it. I mean, the far north, in front of the Jewel and whatnot, and a whole bunch of things done in the oldest part of the business district. So I think there's a lot of thought. We're not at a cold start on this, and we have probably as rich a pool of citizen talent in terms of experts and advisors and so forth to volunteer is a nice way to put it. They will be grabbed by the throat by the mayor to spend some time and on some of these working groups on particular property uses and issues and challenges. So comments well received. I just, this is, picking up the comprehensive plan is like dealing with the source code in your company's computer system or whatever the phrase is. And this has been done very thoughtfully and carefully. I know Kathy's put an enormous amount of time in it, and it's going to be a bring to bear the lifetime of her work in this area.
I don't disagree. I'm sure that the staff will do a wonderful job with this plan, and I appreciate what you've laid out here tonight.
And things are changing. I mean, I think what Alderman Morris said and Tom Swarthout sort of bear that out. I mean, there's nothing static about our business districts and residential requirements for housing and so forth. Any other questions or thoughts? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion in support of a resolution directing city staff and the Plan Commission to undertake an update of the comprehensive plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second, this is a roll call vote.
If you'd like to ask if there's any public comment for that?
Oh, I would like to ask, is there any public comment on this issue from the audience? Seeing none?
Alderman Beidler.
Aye.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Alderman Newman.
Aye.
Alderman Rommel.
Aye.
Alderman Tack.
Aye.
Alderman Reisenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Moreno.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
8 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Any additional items for discussion? If not, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Randy.